Good afternoon, everyone. This is the last session of this confluence. And I sincerely trust there is some nourishing of the minds before we go nourish ourselves before the lunchtime. So thank you for being here. The last 2 days, one thing is amply clear that the shelf life of skills is really shrinking, right? With the rise of new technologies, I think there is a lot that's going to happen in terms of recalibration of roles, existing roles, a lot of new skill sets that didn't even exist a few years ago, and a lot of new career pathways. Now, in this backdrop, growing talent or nurturing talent is definitely challenging. The question that I want to put on the table that we want to examine and explore in a quick 20-30 minutes is, what is really necessary for learning to happen and to succeed? Is it just the training budgets? Is it just identifying the need, getting the budgets, getting the buy-in, getting the stakeholders, getting the learning partners? Definitely, I think in my experience, I see there is a lot more that just meets the eye. Lies in this overall process is really the influential catalysts that I really believe, who not only orchestrate the multifaceted approach to learning, but they really enable the shift for learning to happen and to succeed. And I'm very happy to have such influencers here with me who bring tons and tons of experience. Thank you for being here. And the first question I think I will ask each one of you very quickly. Who are these influencers? What are the traits that you see? I mean, what is the big difference between them, the L&D leaders or the talent leaders or the business leaders? Vibhuti, why don't you start first?
Sure. First and foremost, thank you for getting us here. Am I audible? Okay, probably yes. So influencers, I think they are extremely key. They are the people who make sense of the madness, right? I would say in day-to-day work, even in tech companies like ours, people are so deep into their day-to-day work, they don't track technology. Not everyone gets to hear Jasprit Bindra anytime. So these are people who make sense of the technology, relate to it, bring it to the shop floor in terms of what needs to be done and how does it impact us. That's why they are important. They are the people who keep track of technology and make sense of it for the larger masses.
And then take it for learning.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks. Darshan?
Thank you. See, these are people who have a passion for technology and talent together, and their energies are palpable. I want to give you an example. The two people who started something called as Tech Tribe at NESS. So this is by the people, for the people format, which runs, and everything what they talk is from an application perspective and what happens in real life. So every Thursday, 1 hour it happens. There's a lot of learning. People come, share and go, but driven by two people who are passionate about it. So these are the people who can bring in a very different flavor as compared to what a learning team can do or a standard structured program can do. So these are the people who will drive the culture and make the difference.
So it's the tech acumen, and then from Darshan, it is the passion. Kavita, you.
So definitely agree with what both of them said, but I think if I just have to take a conversation which is technology agnostic or development agnostic as to the area, they have to be great collaborators and they have to be very good listeners. They have to come with an open mind, because what I've noticed nowadays is that everybody comes with an agenda, that I have to get out of the room by getting this. But the idea is, if you really want to understand, you really have to dig deep, use your network, understand where we are, where we want to go. So collaboration and communication, I think, is kind of critical.
Collaboration and communication for you. Yeah. Thanks. Ravindra.
A lot been said. I'll keep it short. Two things. One is being a visionary. Not that what has happened now, what are the skills, what is the demand that is going to come in next 6 months, 1 year, ability to get that, which is almost ambiguous typically, but ability to spot that is one of the critical skill. And other is risk taker, right? Although you did that, you evangelize it, ability to navigate that corporate and then influence it in a right way is the other skill that I look at.
Great, then why don't you continue on that and give me an example. Give us an example of how did you deal in such cases of ambiguity? How did you take that risk? Share an example where your leadership and influence brought about a significant impact.
Priya, it looks like my performance review. Yeah. Yeah. At Tredence, right, we are one of the fastest growing data and AI company. We don't talk anything other than AI and data on the floor. With that said, when we were discussing with our own associates, right, what exactly is your challenge with respect to learning? It's not about the content, it's not about the intent, and it's neither about whether they're available to them or not, right? There is enormous substance that is there out for them to, get learn, get upskill, upgrade, and so on. When we had this bit more honest conversation with the people, they said, Ravi, you say that you want us to be skilled, but where is the time for us? We are into delivery project, we complete the delivery, move on to the next, we try to identify, right? So where is that time for us? Then that hit us hard. It's not the intent of the associate, it's about ability to get the time frame for the people to get upskilled. So what we started, a couple of things, right? People call it as micro learning and so on. We started a program called bite-sized learning in the data science, which is interesting for us because data science as such, for the people who are in the room, they know that the breadth is large. You have computer vision, you have natural language, you have generative AI, you have structured data. But for the person to be skilled and move to the next level, they don't need to learn the entire 9 yards. For them, there is very clear, crisp way to learn forecasting, for example, market mix modeling, and so on. Now, how do we enable these kind of learning in the Instagram world? That we made it possible with respect to these bite-sized, small, tailored modules that help them navigate quickly, get skilled on that particular topic, and go and perform in the live project, right? And then we also brought in something like a credit system that I'm really proud of to bring back the academic rigor into the corporate. It's not only just getting these learning things met, but really get the credits in the right way, right? You go into the process, clear the assessment, ensure that you're skilled and prove that you're skilled on it, and then you get these credits allocated to you like a mini exam. So those are the two things I would say. Yeah.
I think you passed it. I think next is for Bibhuti to pass the performance appraisal. Bibhuti, your experience in driving the change.
So I would rather take an example that we worked on together, right? Gen AI, probably around a year back, one of the influencers in our organization one day called me and said, hey, Vibhuti, I attended a Microsoft conference, GitHub Copilot. They were talking about GitHub Copilot, and it's amazing, yeah, what it can do. Can you put something together? I would want to have a pilot set of people skilled on it so that we can take it to our customer. That one conversation led to many conversations. By the time we actually started an intervention along with StackRoute, we had real use cases worked out with a customer. Those could be solved during that intervention. It was if I remember right, a week-long intervention. And those use cases were taken to the customer. Yeah. Today, that, it's around 1,400 people who work for that customer. The customer is asking all of them to be skilled up on GitHub Copilot. That's the real power of an influencer who keeps an eye on technology and then makes sense.
Brings about that change.
Right? Yesterday, Jaspreet spoke about how he noticed when GPT-2 happened and started tracking it. So there are people in each organization who keep track and then bring the relevance of that new technology for their own organizations and how they can use them to serve their customers better. Every organization has that, and that's the role they play.
See, Vibhuti, thanks. See, but now what you brought about is a disruption, right? A learning that happened at the time of a technological disruption like Gen AI, right? Now, this is my next question. Now, if we have to really classify a lot of these learnings, some of them are hygiene learning. We got to do it. We need that in order to be relevant in our jobs and continue. Some of them are mandatory trainings. And some of them are really future focused for capability building, right? And they are purpose driven learning. Now, my question is, there are a lot of different types of influencing that will happen for various kinds of these learnings. Sometimes you will have to influence the learners themselves, the business, the L&D, the HR, a lot of these things. So where do you see obstacles or where do you see nuances around this? Kavita and Darshan, if you could take that question. How have you handled these things?
I'm trying to be positive on this answer, but mostly it's obstacles, right? Because if you take about the one which is more forward-looking in terms of capability building, I don't know as leaders if all of us have the ability to differentiate and put people on a matrix of performance and potential, right? It's a tick in the box. Just take people, put them in, because you have a number, you want to show that you are very caring about your people and you just want to do something, so might as well do it. The learners are basically like headless chickens because they don't know why they're getting trained. Because nobody has told them that how this makes sense in the overall ecosystem towards the organization, towards the business. So I think there is this huge gap, and I have seen this wherein you have leaders who've come back and said, I think my people are not motivated. You talk to someone else in the organization and it was never about motivation, it was about skill. And then when you talk to the learner, you realize they're completely off because they're saying, we don't even know why we are here. So there was no expectation setting done. There was nothing that was done in terms of the objective, etc. So I think that is something which needs to be solved, because the ones which are mandatory, they will happen. I will still go back and say they just happen, right? It's tick, 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 10 questions, figure it out. Ask the person at the end of the training, what did you learn about trade compliance? Nothing. Right? So I think I'll just stick to this one right now, that it's an obstacle at every stage. It's a challenge, but you just have to do a lot of work to make sure that it happens at the learner level, at the business level, and even at the design level. Yep.
Thank you. Darshan, your take, because you've been through a lot of these things, from skill building, competency, capability. What is your take on this? Your biggest obstacle here?
I'll talk about two paradigms. Skilling time versus billing time. One key paradigm. The other thing is skill to bill. Are these going to go away? No, these are two paradigms which will coexist. And we need to deal with it as learning leaders. And how will we do that is the key to success of any kind of programs when we look at it. So when we say skilling time versus billing time, so then there is a push for learning rather than a pull for learning. So if we have to deal with those cases, it becomes harder. While you're looking at skill to bill, there's a clear need, there's a performance consulting which has happened, you know exactly why you're doing what, and the program director knows, the supervisor knows, the associate knows, and it runs like a breeze and it gets completed. Whereas in the first case where I spoke about skilling time versus billing time, it is important that we bring in that clarity, get a sponsor, get somebody to talk about it, and L&D shouldn't work in isolation for these. So if you're looking at a deep skilling program, for example, a full stack engineering program, what we did with StackRoute itself. So when you get an assorted batch from different projects, different accounts, it's important that you have an executive sponsor for the program who also oversees what's happening. And at the same time, the program is a journey for about 3-4 months, but at the same time, it is also equally important that we celebrate every single milestone and the learners who have done it, and also have an equal stick approach for the people who are dropping off, who are not completing it. We also tell them upfront the kind of investment what the organization is doing for them to be upskilled. So these are some of the things which have worked. And these two paradigms will continue to exist.
So thanks. If the billing, skilling, everything is over, then what happens to sustenance, Vibhuti? How do people continue on that? How do you, as an influencer, how do you promote that learning sustenance? Because it's all again about performance measurement and showing up at work.
Short answer, implement the outcome. I believe it's my role to push the organization to ensure that people who get skilled, their skills are being used.
How? I mean, what are some of the things that you do to promote their sustenance?
Rotate them, get them the roles where they get to use their skills. That's the best way to sustain.
Okay.
So I believe it's becoming more and more a learning leader's role to ensure that people who are getting skilled, their skills are being used in the organization. Otherwise, you keep skilling, the decay happens much faster in today's time. Or today's learners are smart. They figure out how do they use their newly acquired skills either here or somewhere else.
Now then, that requires a support of business, requires a support of
Absolutely,
talent,
absolutely.
L&D and everything, right? So then let me shift to Kavita and Ravindra there, right? See, there are different needs of moments of learning that we call. If I'm learning something new versus if I already know something, I want to expand the breadth and depth of what I know, which is learn new, but plus learn more. Now I want to apply what I've learned. Now I want to solve a problem with what I've learned. The final stage is probably when really the ROI of learning that comes when I can do something, when I can create something, when I can challenge the status quo. So there are different moments of learning need, at least 5 that I can think of, right? But who should you influence here to get all of these things happen? Because Bibhuti said to promote learning sustenance, a lot of these things have job rotation, give them the opportunities and all of that. But again, there is a struggle, right? If you ask the L&D, they will say business has to do it. If they ask the business, they'll say the L&D has to do it. Now, I have two. One who heads, Kavita heads the COE, and I have you who is completely from the business. Why don't both of you take what the other person has to do better?
No. Sir, this is going out of syllabus. Okay, we are going to have a fight here if this is the way it happens, right?
If that can improve the TRP rating of my panel, I'll be very happy if you can fight.
My pleasure. Please take.
Okay, I can go first.
Who are you? Business.
Yeah.
You're wrong already.
That's an everyday dialogue that we have, right, in our organization. And I strongly believe it's not about business and L&D, right? So they need to work in tandem. The reason is very simple. I can put my frustration out, right? So L&D should not be seen as a cost center or a element just for skilling the people. They should be neck to neck with business and say, because I did this, I'm able to improve the bottom line or top line of the company, and it can be done. Every program that we run has an ROI, and we associate hard numbers to it. And it's possible at the scale of our company, which is not that large, almost 3,000 people, but still, what we're trying to drive the message is, I also want my L&D peers to be at same level of talking and say, not just that it's a skilling program, but we are driving a revenue.
Okay. No, not okay. This is the diplomatic me saying okay. But fine, I think I'll go back and say L&D will do all of this. My problem is you will give me all this gyan, disappear, and you will have zero involvement throughout the training. You want me to be neck to neck with you and in the business, but when it comes to your ability to be a part of it, through the journey of the learner, you always have too much of work. It's not on your priority list, right? It's my deliverable. Thank you so much. Seriously. But yeah, partnership has to happen, which is I think too much of gyan seriously from the business at times.
I know his next answer.
धंधा करूंगा या फिर
I told you, sir, it's going the wrong way.
Please go on. The TRP rating is improving.
इसका अपना एजेंडा चल रहा है वहाँ पे.
No, I strongly feel because the businesses are after the numbers, so they need to really chase those. But I think that's what I said. It is not about business or the L&D. We need to really work together, and we see the value because without you, we can't sustain.
Can you please repeat that?
Yeah, without you, we can't sustain, right? But you need to be at that level also to talk with the business and then say, hey, this is what we bring onto the table, all right? So I'd say it's both together.
I completely agree. As in jokes aside, it is both, but I think somewhere the expectation setting has to be done in the beginning. that this is your part, this is my part. Let's accept it. Somewhere down the line, you know the business obviously 100 times more than what I do. I know L&D part of it. We can give you inputs and say these 4 things are possible, which one makes sense. But I think once in the beginning, you need to make sure that the expectation setting is done. Thereafter, you have to make sure that you are talking about it. You cannot come at the end of the program or suddenly see me on a smoke break and say, "Haan, kya chal raha hai?" Right? That's not something I hope you understand.
See,
Good,
all
good.
ended well. See, all ended well.
Hopefully.
Yeah. See, but my point, one thing that has been troubling me, and I'm sure it troubles quite a few people when we've been having this conversation is, see, we have been running, we run programs, not just India, right? I mean, we have programs across, and this is one area where I really think the business, L&D, talent, I think it's just a responsibility of all of us to come together to influence something in one area is what I feel is, we run programs across what? Romania, Australia, Netherlands, Bulgaria. I mean, I can go on and on. Canada, US. For the same client, we run programs across. We've end up with a lot of these small, what I call is nuanced aspects of talent development in terms of academic integrity, discipline, right? Plagiarism. Why is that we have this, we see this more often in India and not in the other countries? And I really think this is something where I think all of us have to come together for India INC, because we had an Amitabh Khan talk about, India growing. And we speak about a lot of these great concepts and philosophies of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and all of that. But where is our culture really there, especially in terms of, because this is where it starts, the integrity, discipline, the ethics and all of that, right? Darshan, you have worked in Europe, you have worked in a lot of other places. So I know the tough question is to you. What is your take?
I think one of the key challenges here is in India, we've been conditioned and psyched that we must clear every exam, we must score so much, you have to pass, and you have to showcase it. Being good is less important than being seen as good. So most of the time we focus on being seen as good as individuals and as a culture many times. So, but on the contrary, if you look at learning is for development, assessment is for development, and my scores doesn't represent just my capability. I don't have to be seen in green all the time. So people across different countries, especially, when you talk about Netherlands and UK, France, etc., they're okay. If you don't score well, it's fine. It's anyway, I'm learning. That's why I'm assessing myself. So here, the need to be seen in the top and to be there is very intrinsic. So that becomes the primary challenge while dealing with it. And you circumvent the system or try to be there in some way or the other and not really look at failure like that. So some of the key things which we could look at as an organization when we look at it like this are, one, the value system of the organization. What kind of tolerance do you have for failures? What kind of values do you speak about? And what kind of values do we live? So yesterday, I was speaking to Viketi and I told him that while I worked for NIIT, the first thing I heard from him was NIIT is people. And that I don't know, this probably 1998 is when I heard from him, but it still stays with me. And I see that as a living value and people understand it, and it's okay to fail, it's okay to learn, it's okay to move forward, helps in reducing some of these challenges related to being seen as successful, being seen as having done it, etc. So that's one example. The second example, again, talking about how do we live and what are the values and how do we take it forward, is from my next organization, Cognizant. So where they had something called the Legends of Cognizant as a concept, where all the people who built Cognizant, what did they do, where did they fail, how did they overcome, was openly discussed and also recorded, which was interesting for people to learn and understand that people who reached the pinnacle of their success was not a simple straight line, but it was through the trenches, troughs and curves. Last point, again coming to NESS, there is something called as NESS Value Drivers Awards. So what are the values of NESS, and who have exemplified it, lived it, etc., are being recognized and celebrated in the organization. So these are three examples which I'd like to bring across and talk about.
Very good
integrity.
point. Saying that learning is an inherently complex process. It's not a simple straight line. Celebrating, recognizing a lot of these good things with values. And Ravindra, then why don't you take over from here in the sense, how do you celebrate? How do you bring about? How do you really walk the talk? See, because I think for influencing, one needs authenticity. Authenticity requires, again, a lot of knowledge and versatility that comes with developing perspectives and thought leadership. So without this, you really can't walk the talk and influence people. And I think you speak everywhere and you have more than a dozen patents and you have a few more in pipeline. How do you see this? How are you doing this in Tredence?
We have a couple of things, right? We being in a consulting organization, our primary job is to get the solution to the business problem and then move on, right? And that was also what the culture of associate was, right? And there was also an inherent bias within our own people saying, hey, there is a small amount of innovation that has been brought in to solve that problem, right? Is there a way for me to evangelize this more, right? Can I write a conference or a journal paper or put across for a patent to publish? Earlier, that thinking process was not there. But what we did was, like Other mentioned, the legends and so on, we set champions within that they can advocate the story to the people and then say, hey, because of this small piece, although it is not that you need to be with an advanced degrees of PhDs or masters to file for a patent or a conference, you can still do it because still that is a niche area that you have solved, right? Ability to mobilize that, bring that confidence to your associates was one of the key driver that we did and that we are celebrating also the people who do that.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Ravindra. I think let's complete it with a very quick 30-second round, right? Now, as influencers, I'm just going to put some questions. Just take whichever you think is good for you. If, as an influencer, if you can help transition from one to the other, or if you can bring about this shift, right? And if I'm saying, how do you bring about the shift from passive learning to participatory learning? Who wants to take that? 30 seconds, please.
This is maybe, like putting the axe, but I think from passive to participatory, my sincere request to everyone is कि सबसे पहले ये PPT खत्म कर दो. Right? It's just that there is too much of PPT, and while we keep on saying use technology, make it more interactive, the only way technology is used is to make your PowerPoints more beautiful. Right? So just think about it, just think of a training program and just assume that there can never be a PPT in it. How would you go and schedule it then? So that's one. I have more, but I will give others a chance to talk. Okay.
Can I try this with Dell in the upcoming program?
Talk.
Yes.
We will talk.
Okay, thanks. The next shift, from upskilling to upgrading talent. Who wants to take it? Upskilling to upgrading.
I can. For us, upskilling is like Blinkit, right? Just in time, you get it, you want that, and then you get it done. Upgrading is a bit more thorough. It's more strategic. It's also a bit of involved activity where you talk to business stakeholders, say what is evolving, what is the trend that is happening, is there a need for my business to invest in this area such that I can make some returns later on. So I would say upskilling is just in time, upgrading is a bit more strategic.
So how will you enable the shift there?
I would say it requires a participation, the kind of turf that we had just now, right? I need you people, and then we need other stakeholders to work together to make it happen because upgrading is a bit more longer journey.
Okay. So the next one is based on what Dr. Anand Deshpande said yesterday, right? He said, put learner at the center, right? That is the next shift that I'm asking. How do you move from a faculty-centered or a mentor-centered to learner-centered? How do you enable that shift? Who wants to take it? Vibhuti, yes, please go ahead.
So in today's, definitely learner-centered, right? I think over the 2 days, many people spoke about it. Today's hyper-personalized world, it is defeating to believe that one can tell another how to learn, right? At best, we can be catalysts. At best, we can make avenues, mediums available to people. But it is people who figure out what works for them, right? What did you say? What to what?
To learner-centered, how do you make that shift
Yeah, so
from mentor-centered or faculty-centered
faculty-centered to learner-centered, right? I mean, it's a room full of people from L&D, right? If I ask how many of us have attended a faculty-led session in the last 5 years, how many of us? Okay, 2 hands are going up. Strange, but I appreciate. Would it be wrong to say that we don't learn? We absolutely learn. How do we learn? We have figured out our own mediums, right? For me, what works? My LinkedIn feed is the best channel for me to learn, right?
Yeah.
I have communities. My fraternity feeds me enough to learn. So it is people who figure out. And gone are the days when you can direct someone how to go about learning something.
Thanks. The last 30 seconds. I think, Darshan, you're the only one left. You have to take this. As an influencer, how do you see the shift, or how will you enable the shift from an organization mandated training to employee motivated learning?
See, if we can answer what's in it for me for the employee, they'll figure out what it is. So, and we also need to understand we're not custodians of learning, we're enablers of learning. So if we have these two things very clear in our mind, that the learner is responsible for their careers and their growth, and the learning department is just an enabler, and drive that in every conversation. So they start owning up their careers, and pull automatically happens. That's key. Otherwise, we'll be talking everything, but it'll still be a push in some sense. So how do we really create that pull for them to grow and become successful will be critical. And this has to be evangelized, spoken from various people who have learnt and grown, and with the ecosystem and beyond the ecosystem. They both coexist. So it just doesn't mean that, okay, we'll put some e-learning courses, will give you all platforms and you learn by yourself. So there also has to be guardrails, there also has to be hand-holding, and these two systems will coexist and then make it happen. That's my view.
Thank you. And I think with that, I think we completed a great panel discussion much before time. So I think we'll have to applaud ourselves for being so ahead of time. And so one key takeaway for me, at least, is the culture of learning is really the hallmark for any high-performance organization, and learning does not happen in vacuum. With all of these ingredients, I think we really have to celebrate and nurture more and more influencers who can help talent to grow further and further. With that, thanks a ton to the 4 wonderful panelists that I had today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Raghavan and the panelists. May I request Dr. Raghavan to please present a token of our gratitude to the panelists. May I request the panelists to stay there. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for the panelists, Dr. Raghavan, for a lovely, insightful discussion.
Thank you.